Making the jump from a sole proprietorship or independent contractor to a limited liability company or LLC can seem very difficult at first, but it is a critical step to take as you look to grow your business. Because look, you may start off with a small side hustle where you're doing a little bit of freelance work or some type of side gig. However, as you become more experienced in your work and in your industry, then you may start making more income, and then you'll definitely want to start taking your business operations a bit more seriously as you look to expand. So this video is going to be great for all those people who are getting a 1099 as an individual and they're wondering if they should start an LLC. So what I want to do is cover the pros and the cons of a sole proprietorship versus an LLC, then walk through step by step how to convert into an LLC as a sole proprietor. Then I want to make sure you know about the tax treatment of an LLC if you decide to move forward. So if all that sounds good to you, then make sure you like this video for the YouTube algorithm and so other people can find it, and subscribe to our channel. Stay tuned. Hey there, and if you're new, welcome to our channel. I'm Sean with Life Accounting, the accounting company that helps you save on taxes and build more wealth. Now, before we dive in, I want you to know that I'm gonna put the timestamps for this video down in the description below so you can skip to the parts that you want to learn the most about. But as always, I think you should watch the entire video so that you get the full understanding of the message. All right, let's go ahead and get this party started with number one, sole proprietorships versus an LLC. So many people start out as a sole proprietorship because they're usually performing freelance work or contractor work under a website or another business entity, and without even realizing it, they have become a sole proprietorship by default, because that's the business entity you automatically will become if you are the sole owner, unless you elect otherwise. Which is okay, because if you're working under another business entity, then they may offer a lot of legal protections for you. However, as the business grows, so does your need to keep your business assets and your personal assets completely separate. So the natural progression is for sole proprietors to transition into an LLC so they can protect their personal assets, because LLCs offer something known as limited liability protection, which basically means that if someone were to sue your business, then at least your personal assets will be protected in the event of an unfavorable ruling. Although, look, I love to mention, as always, that it's just your personal assets that are protected, which means you could still lose any business assets attached to your company. So when you're thinking about purchasing business vehicles or getting more business equipment, then remember those assets still could be claimed, which is why it's so important to have business insurance. And I can make an entire video talking about business insurance alone. So if you want to see me make one, just tell me in the comment section below. Anyway, let's move on to number two and talk about the pros and the cons of a sole proprietorship versus an LLC. So I'm going to make this very simple with a side-by-side comparison. On one side, we have sole proprietorships, and on the other side, we have LLCs. Okay, so one great thing about sole proprietorships are they usually don't have any ongoing government requirements. There are no registration, there is no paperwork, there are no annual fees to pay, so you can start your business operations almost immediately. On the other hand, LLCs do need to be registered with your state and require annual renewal fees, along with some other administrative requirements such as maybe logging annual meeting minutes. However, the great thing about LLCs is that you have limited liability protection. So members' personal assets can still be protected in the event that the LLC is sued or has some unpayable debts, whereas sole proprietorships do not offer any limited liability protection, although they still could be protected with good business insurance or underneath another business entity that does offer that protection and they're contracted with them. Another big difference between a sole proprietorship and an LLC are financial separations, because even though sole proprietorships should keep their financial records separate, they're not required to. Whereas LLCs are more likely to have financial separation, which gives them an edge when it comes to building up business credit. Which, by the way, I have an entire video breaking down how to establish and build business credit as an LLC owner, which I'll link at the end of this video so you can check it out after you finish. But anyway, as you can see, sole proprietorships can offer speed. It can help you get your side hustle rolling without having to think about all the paperwork and all the tax outcomes. But LLCs are definitely superior in the benefits that it offers for protection and future growth. So let's move to number 3 and talk about how to transition a sole proprietorship into an LLC step by step. So here's a video checklist of everything you want to make sure you're doing when you're transitioning from a sole proprietorship to an LLC. Step number 1, consider professional help. Look, if you don't know taxes, you don't know business entities, and that's not your strong suit, and you have self-awareness around that, then of course you can consider hiring a professional tax strategist or an attorney to help you get things set up. And of course, shameless plug, my company offers tax consultations and tax services. So if you would like a helping hand, then consider clicking the first link down in the description below so you can learn more about how we can help you. However, I want to admit that the process is really not that difficult, and I'm going to lay out exactly what I would tell you in a one-on-one session throughout this video. So let's keep moving along with step number 2, choose a name for your LLC. When you are a sole proprietor, then a business name isn't something you really need to worry about, because if you don't have a business name, then by default, you would just use your personal US government name. However, this is something you need to consider a little bit more carefully when you're setting up an LLC. Now, naming requirements vary from state to state, but all states require that the business name reflects an LLC status so people cannot easily identify that you are indeed an LLC. So for example, if I created a business name like Sean's Tax Services, I would have to enter and sign agreements as Sean's Tax Services LLC. Got it? Okay, step number 3 would be to designate a registered agent. Now, if you don't know what a registered agent is, it is basically the main point of contact for communicating with state, federal, and local authorities. So this is the person who will receive and accept mail and correspond with those respective parties. Now, some people won't tell you this because they want you to pay for their services and hire them as accountants and attorneys. But look, any partner or member can be a registered agent on an LLC. You don't have to go out there and find an attorney that will act as your registered agent, although this is an option as well. Okay, moving on to step number 4, file the articles of organization. So typically you'll want an operations agreement in place when you're setting up an LLC. But if you know you will be the only member of the LLC and you don't anticipate adding any other members or partners, then you may be able to skip this step since you're pretty much running the show anyway. But some states still do require an operations agreement be in place, and you attach that once you register. So to go ahead and set up your LLC, you'll want to go to your Secretary of State and make sure your business name is available in that state. Then you'll want to, of course, list yourself as the sole member or partner of that LLC. Then you'll want to make sure that obviously you select the LLC status. Then you'll want to list a registered agent, the person who's going to receive mail and correspondence on your behalf, and then pay a small registration fee required by your state. Once you take care of all of that, then it typically takes about a couple of weeks for your state to approve your LLC and send the articles of incorporation. And once you have that, then you can move on to step number 5 and register with the IRS. There are 2 big things here that we want to cover, okay? First, another pro of an LLC is that you can make different tax elections. So if you know up front that you want your LLC to be treated as a corporation, then you can make that IRS classification using Form 8832. Otherwise, you would stick to the default IRS classification of an LLC, which basically means that it will be taxed as a pass-through entity where the income or profits flow down to you as an individual. The second big thing is that you want to make sure you apply for a new employer identification number or EIN. So most sole proprietorships operate with their social security number or SSN. However, it's a good idea that you have an EIN for your LLC because your EIN is like a SSN but for your business. All right, I used a lot of abbreviations there. I hope you were able to keep up. Getting your EIN number is free and easy, okay? All you need to do is go to the IRS website and make sure you're eligible, do a quick application, and then submit. And then you're done. Okay, now so far, all the steps I've been going through are the typical steps you would take for setting up any new business as an LLC. However, the next steps are unique to people who are already operating and trying to make the switch. So step number 6 is to reapply for licenses and permits. Depending on your state and the type of work you do, you may have gone through a process where you needed to get a business license or some type of permit in order to execute your products or services. For example, of course, you need a permit to sell firearms or to sell alcoholic beverages. Well, if you apply for those licenses or permits as an individual sole proprietorship, then please don't forget to reapply for those licenses or permits under your new LLC's business name so that you remain compliant with your local and state governments. Okay, step number 7 is highly related to step number 6, which is to amend any existing agreements. So if you have contracts with other clients, or even if you're working under another business entity like Upwork or Uber, then you'll want to make sure you amend any existing agreements and put them under your LLC's name. That way you make it very clear that you are now executing services under your new LLC rather than you as an individual, because if you don't make this clear, then you could still be operating as a sole proprietorship where your personal assets are exposed. If this is too much of a hassle, then at the very least, you want to make sure any 1099s you receive are being put in your LLC's name rather than in your personal name so that you can show your income was received on behalf of the LLC. Okay, for step number 8, I have update your bank information or open a new business account. So if you already opened a business account as a sole proprietorship, then you can approach your existing bank and make them aware that you have now converted into an LLC and want to put the bank account in your LLC's name. The bank may then allow you to change the information on your existing business bank account or simply ask that you close that bank account and open a new one under your LLC's name. In either case, most banks will require that you have articles of incorporation and an EIN number to set up your business bank account for your LLC. So of course, it's very important that you've already taken those steps that we mentioned. And you want to make sure you're doing this for your business bank accounts and your business credit card accounts. Now, once you have completed those 8 steps, then congratulations, you have officially made the jump from sole proprietorship to LLC owner. So now let's move into the next part of this video and talk about number 4, the tax treatment of a single member LLC. Let me explain with a visual. So for example, when you make money as an independent contractor, then of course the profits flow down directly to you on your personal tax return. Well, since you have an LLC, by default, it is taxed as a pass-through entity, which means the profits pass through the LLC and down to your personal tax return once again. So in this case, you are still using the Schedule C to report your income, your tax deductions, and overall file your taxes. Now, if you have a partnership LLC or a multi-member LLC, then you may need to actually do a 1065 tax return, which allocates the share of profits for each member of the LLC. But at least for single member LLCs, that is not required. So the process is super similar as it is to a sole proprietorship. Now, as a quick bonus, as your LLC grows, I want you to know that you can convert your single member LLC into an S corporation. And there are times where that makes a lot of sense and can save you a lot of money on taxes. But of course, there are times when that doesn't make sense as well. So coming up next, I have 2 more videos that talk about business entities and S corporations. So if you haven't checked those out already, make sure you do, and I'll see you over there.